Hello, everybody. We are another nerdy couple, and today is Friday, November 6th, 2020. And I think you know what that means in America.
Mandalorian season 2
Yeah.
episode 2 came
Episode
out.
2 came out today.
Woo woo.
And it was
It was an episode.
good. It was good. So let's start with our initial ranks.
All right. So I honestly didn't love it.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. Last
Okay.
episode I gave it a 6, and I think at the end of it I gave it a 7. But this episode wasn't even as good as that one, and I didn't love that one. Like this episode was just kind of slow.
I'm with you. It was definitely a different paced episode this time, and it was much of a smaller story. I feel like. I am at a 6 out of 10.
A 6.
A 6, because there were aspects that I really liked about it, and there were things that were interesting and fun to watch and had me on the edge of my seat. But I feel like this was not a great episode for The Mandalorian. And I think that's something that's important to distinguish is that for me, we haven't spoken about this, but I'm doing this, like, this is a 6 out of 10 in terms of where I think The Mandalorian should be. You get me? Like, it's not a 6 out of 10 show in all of the shows combined. It's a 6 out of 10 Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, it's what you expect from Mandalorian. This is a 6 out of what you expect.
Right.
I see that. Okay.
Yeah. And with that, let's talk about. Let's go through it. Let's dive into it. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was in this episode and in the last episode, the opening scene is a 10 out of 10 for me both times.
Yeah.
Like, I just really love what they do in the beginning. Like, I just love it.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember the opening scene. Is that when they were gambling? Like that scene?
The opening scene was when they had the rope and they
yes, that
ambushed him.
fight.
Yeah.
Yes. They always started with like a little
Right,
fight of
right.
some sort, which is nice, and it like sets the tone. And like I expected that to play a part. It didn't.
Yeah, no, that one didn't really play a part. It was just like, just a nice like display of the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Well, I guess it did kind of help to get that idea of like he's on the run and people are after him.
Right.
But like those people weren't necessarily after him.
Yeah.
They were just
After something.
after.
Right.
Eh.
But it does do a good job because the Star Wars universe, is not exactly a very safe place to be, and I feel like that's something that would definitely happen, to anybody. And they just picked the wrong person in The Mandalorian, in Mando. And in that scene, one of my favorite things is that they got to show the cunning of the Mandalorian, because it happens, they destroy his speeder and he kills the other 2 people or 3 people or whatever, and then there's one bandit left and he's got the child, right? And the Mandalorian's like, okay, what do you want? We'll figure it out. He gives him his jetpack. We get the child back. And then he's like, oh, okay, you're safe. Like, we're good. And then you just see him casually, like, beep, 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 beep. Jetpack goes off, flies up into the air, and kills the guy. Like, It's just like, it's a good explanation or good view of his cunning, because it's not even, he didn't even have to think about it. Like, he knew, giving his jetpack, like, he knew exactly what he was going to do when it was going down.
Yeah, when he was taking it off, I was like, oh, he just did something. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, that man's not keeping that jetpack.
Yeah, because as soon as he took off the jetpack, I was like, not the jetpack, bro. Like, I love the jetpack.
Yeah.
And I think he feels the same way. I think he really does, because he's like, you ain't getting out of here with my jetpack, bro.
Of course not.
I'm gonna fly you up to the sky. I'm gonna drop you right down. Mm-hmm. And that's what we like about the Mando. He's a dangerous man. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so then, they get back to town or whatever, get back to Mando's ship. And then they're like, oh, we get to the gambling scene between the lady, I don't know who she is, and,
the big ant.
Right, and the big ant. Dr. Mandible, as she called him.
Oh, okay.
And, they, through one way or another, they're like, okay, we have a contact. They know where a Mandalorian is, but you got to do something in return, right? And then we become a taxi service, right? He says I'm not a taxi service, but you become a taxi service.
Yeah, because you gotta take the person to where they need to be.
Yeah, and this frog lady, right, as Mando calls her, I've never seen this race of people before in Star Wars. Maybe they've been in the background and I'm just dumb, but I've never seen them interacted with them, right? Mm-hmm. And they have some eggs that they need to transport because they're the last of their kind, and the whole thing, right? Yeah. And the child is drawn to the eggs. Yeah,
I thought that was so weird. So like, the child was drawn to the eggs. Mm-hmm. He then like eats the eggs and like wants to eat more, whatever. But then in the spider scene, he was drawn to those eggs too. Yeah. And I was like, what is that about? Like, why eggs? Like, is there a significance there? Am I missing something?
So it just came to me right now, right? Mm-hmm. We were also watching somebody else do a review of the first episode, like, just in our free time. And they brought up that in season 1, in the beginning, there was like the rhino creature and Mando had to get the egg for the people. And right now, we had the crate dragon. We killed the crate dragon, and the Tusken Raiders are out here with the egg,
That wasn't an egg.
It was an egg.
That wasn't an egg.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, well, it could have been an egg. It could have been an egg. It's an egg. It's not an egg. That's right. It was a pearl. Yeah. But it could be an egg. But like now we got more egg stuff, possible egg stuff, you know, like more just in that category. Like why? Yeah. I don't get it. I hope there's going to be some type of revelation that's around the child's, interest in these eggs. Yeah. And then like, just I don't know, like it right now it feels a little just strange and off that,
like, when he was eating the eggs and we there was that like whenever something would happen that made it seem like the eggs were in jeopardy, I was like, oh, maybe the fact that he ate them is gonna like somehow like protect those eggs, and like the eggs that he ingested are the ones that we're gonna use because somehow we're gonna get them back. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but who knows? Some sort of reason for why he's eating these eggs.
Yeah. But, so he starts eating the eggs in the ship, right? Mm. And, they're on the ship and they can't use light travel because it'll kill the eggs or whatever. So they have to go slow from point A to point B. And while they're going slow, they get caught up by some X-Wings. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, I really loved seeing the X-Wings. Like, it's very iconic Star Wars stuff. Yeah. And just like when the X-Wing showed up, I was like, oh yeah, like this is gonna be a good scene, because like that's just what I associate it with. And they're talking to Mando like, oh, can you do this for us? And he's like, no. And then they're like, okay, well then we're gonna have to take you in. He's like, oh wait, I got it. Yeah. Right. And then they're like, oh hey buddy, switch to channel 2, And then he does it, and then you just like see them open up their weapons, and I'm like, oh yeah, bro, this is what I wanted. And then we get them chasing Mando and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, like how are we getting out of this, And we don't, but before we don't get out of it, we do a canyon run, and I know you are probably not so familiar, but like I love a good canyon run. They have it in the Death Star a couple times. They they have some like speeder stuff, like not so much canyon runs, but like between the trees and stuff. Like they do a lot of that kind of like tight maneuvering type of stuff in Star Wars, and then they have a bunch of canyon runs in Star Wars video games where you're like doing that stuff. So I just really like that there was another canyon run. This one was very short, very short, and ended up that we started crashing and got to a situation.
Yeah, but it seemed like a purposeful crash until he started falling.
Yeah. Yes, because he was going to. The ship was intact when he crashed that first time, and he was going to go, but then the floor was unstable. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it did seem like a really cool scene. The only thing that bothered me about the X-Wings is like they kept saying like, oh, stop or we're gonna shoot you, stop or we're gonna shoot you, and like they never shot him. And I was like, yo, like if you're gonna do it. You know, like I'd love to see like the canyon kind of breaking down as you like miss and hit the ice, and like I feel like that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
It was still a cool scene,
right.
but I think that they could have done more.
Yeah. And then, you know, this was just another showcase, a small showcase of how skilled the Mando is, not just in like, you know, hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that, but also just like he is a master of like everything in his arsenal, you know. And I think I really appreciate that because like he's just so good at being him, you know. It's really good to see. So I enjoyed those kinds of things in the episode.
Yeah.
And although I don't really feel that much happened in this episode, I think it's going to be like, it's, you know, it should be a setup because we are going to a place where we should learn more about other Mandalorians and, you know, really progress the story. And, you know, we have a lot of stories still ahead of us, right? And, you know, we're supposed to meet the Jedi Ahsoka later on in the season. So I think later on it's going to really pick up, especially with these first two episodes that are kind of like, you know.
I keep forgetting that this is like the beginning of the season because I'm like, oh, another slow episode. Like, oh, we didn't do anything. We haven't progressed the story, but I'm like, we are progressing the story. We're getting there. It's just slower. Than I would want in a like show, especially because I know there's only like 10 episodes, you know?
Right.
So it's like, well, if you're only going to have 8 episodes, then I need to have information at every episode. Yeah. And so, like, in this episode, we are going to this new planet and, like, hopefully going to find more Mandalorians. But, like, we didn't even get to that planet yet. Yeah. There was something... Oh, no. It's later.
It's later. So, we're on this planet. We're crashed. Now Mando's trying... There's a hole in the ship. Now Mando is trying to repair the hole, right? Because... he's held to the code that the frog lady spoke through the robot.
The droid.
The droid. So he's held to the code that he said a word. He said, I agree that I will help you. And he's held to his word. So he's doing it. And then the frog lady leaves, right? So we follow her tracks and she's in like a hot spring in this frozen planet. And she's got her eggs there because her eggs need to be warm and all that stuff. And... you know, we're like, okay, we gotta go, you know, for whatever reason. So we're putting the eggs back, and the child keeps on trying to touch the eggs and grab it, and you could really kind of see like Mando like becoming a father figure to no, do not touch it, you know,
not touch those eggs,
right? Because I feel like for the most part in all these previous episodes, like Mando is just doing what it takes to keep the child alive. Yeah, right?
Keeping it safe.
And not so much doing right things for the child. Yeah. And even in the beginning of the episode, I'm jumping back, but when he saved the child from the bandit and, you know, it started walking towards Mando with its arms open, like he carried it and he was like, hey, are you okay? Like, you know, it's going to be fine, all that stuff. So like he's changing.
Yeah, he's definitely becoming more caring to the child and more like loving. Like you can tell that their bond is growing. It's not so much like I need to keep this safe and like
he's
in
not
earlier
a mission
episodes
anymore.
Too, it was more like talking to a friend and like this little guy is my buddy, you know, like he goes where I go. But now it's like no, like I need to protect him, like he is mine, and like I need to raise him.
So back to the ice planet, you know, he tells him no, so the child's like, screw it, I'm going away, I'm just going to walk around and see what else is out here. And again, like we said, he's just drawn to eggs for some reason. I've never seen Yoda eat an egg. Be personal.
Be personal.
Maybe this guy just likes eggs, you know, he's got his own personality. And he opens the egg, and like the way that the egg opened, I was like, is this like some type of flower or plant in the beginning? Because it was green and it was plant-like the way that it peeled open. But then when I looked inside, the spider, I was like, oh no. Yeah. And then he just eats it with all like the goop around it. I was like, oh my God. Like it was hard for me to watch. I hate spiders. I do. And these are creepy looking spiders.
Yeah. So he pulls out the spider and he eats it. And then you see all the other eggs start to shake. And I was like, oh, shaking. It's going down, right? And I wonder if him eating that one is what set the others off. Or if they were just like primed to hatch, you know?
Yeah.
And so he sets them all off and they start coming out. And they're crawling. And I was like, ooh, there's going to be a big one. Yeah. Like, mama's coming.
Right.
and then there were like slightly bigger ones.
We saw the medium-sized ones, and I was like, this is the big one.
Yeah, I was like, those are
that's
big. Yeah, and I was like, why are there so many? Like, this all seems like one, plant, animal. And then the huge spider comes out, and I was like, ah! It was so gross.
It was scary, like at that, from the moment that the eggs started to hatch until basically the end of the episode, I felt the tension, right?
Yeah.
And it might just be because I am actually scared of spiders that I felt more tension, but I was on the edge of my seat at that point because I was like, we need to get out of here. The ship is not in a good state. How are we going to get out of this?
Yeah. But I had the same idea that Mando did when he went out. He was like, okay, let's all get into the cockpit.
Right.
Like, this isn't broken yet. Let's fly away. And I was like, oh, it's working. We're getting out of here. And then, boom, the big spider jumps on him. And then we're like, oh no. And then, stabs right through the cockpit glass. Right. And we're like, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. I just realized that it did stab through the cockpit. Like, it did actually make it through, so he had to repair that because later on, they fly away. And he did say that he had to do some repairs, but he had to do extensive repairs. To make
he said that he would be able to
pressurize
the cabin. Cockpit. There was just he couldn't fix that big hole that they got.
Yeah.
But so whatever. So they're fighting the big spider, and then the X-wings come in. And they start shooting him, and you don't know who's there helping. And then he gets out there, and he's like, ah, shit.
Yeah. When the blasters started firing at the spiders, I got very excited, right? And in the back of my mind, I knew it was probably the rebels because the first thing I wrote down was rebels ? In regard to that. And I figured it would be the rebels, but I wanted it to be somebody more interesting.
Yeah.
Because the rebels are cool and the X-wings are cool, but I don't know I don't know those guys.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be somebody who means something to the story.
Yeah.
And maybe those rebels will go back and be like, hey, we saw a Mandalorian, and then that will spread out through the web of connections and whatnot. But I don't know. I liked that the rebels came in and saved the day for Mando, but it was kind of a letdown when I just saw that it was just these two random dudes that chased him down from space. That I don't know how they got back to him, how they found him again. Big time.
But I mean, they knew they lost him.
Right.
And so they were like, well, he must be in this cave system somewhere.
Right. And
I'm sure you can see the giant spider.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, he's probably there. Something woke the spider.
Right.
They mentioned that he, the Mandalorian, freed prisoner X6791, maybe. It took me a second to write it down.
I think there were two ones.
That's probably not the right numbers. I wasn't sure who that was.
Yeah, because it could have been the child, right? But the child was held in season 1 in some type of raider camp as well, right? I think. Or no, he was in the Imperial camp.
He was in Imperial.
Yeah. And so he had Frog Lady on board as well, but he didn't, he was, smuggling her, I'm sure that she was not listed as one of the people on the ship.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I think that was significant, and so that's why I tried to write it down. Right. I didn't write it down fast enough to get the right numbers.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know who that is. Because
yeah.
that is why they said that they should take him in.
Right.
Because, he freed prisoner, blah, blah, blah. Because then they started listing, all the good things he did. And I was like, okay, I remember most of those.
He brought some people to justice. Right. So
that prisoner thing is important.
Yeah. Right.
I think.
Yeah. And, at the end of their little interaction, Mando's like, so, since I did these good things, you think I can, get some help here? And they're like, just fix your ship, lol.
Yeah.
And then they left. I was like, man, because, the rebels obviously in Star Wars are the good guys of the story. So I thought that they're like, okay, well, this Mandalorian here has done some pretty good things. I'm like, yeah, he's done some shady stuff as well, but the good outweighs the bad for Mando. So I thought that they were going to help him and just kind of assume that he was doing something good right now, but they were just figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
you're not my problem.
They were like, oh, you've done good things, so that's why I'm letting you live
Right.
and letting you carry on.
Yeah.
But because he even offered them money. He was like, I'll give you the bounties for those 3 people.
Right.
And then they were like, no.
Yeah. Like,
Goodbye. You know, like,
that's
not worth it to us. Like, we're not going to stay
Right.
and help you, but
yeah.
we didn't kill you.
Yeah. So that's, basically where it ends. And then they fly off into space with their ship, a little ratchet and rackety and all that stuff.
I like that he goes, we're going to limp to this planet. And I was like, well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, something I forgot to mention is that, there's a language barrier between Mando and Frog Lady.
Yeah.
And 2 times throughout the episode, the Mandalorian scowl breaks down all language barriers. Because in the beginning, the Frog Lady is freaking out when they're on the radio, and he just looks at her.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, she got it. And then, again, with the spiders or something, she was freaking out, and he was just like...
Yeah.
She falls into place and stuff. So, I just like that, even through the mask and all that, like, when the Mandalorian looks at you like that, you know.
Yeah.
You don't need to speak any other languages. Like, you just know.
Yeah. I found it interesting, too. So, it seemed at first, like, when we first meet Frog Lady... It seems like she doesn't speak English because the other lady was, like, translating it for her.
Right.
But as Mando continued to talk to her...
Right, she was answering
She
questions.
was answering back, and, like, she was understanding it. And even by the end of the episode, like, Frog Lady wasn't being translated anymore.
Right.
And Mando kind of understood
Yeah.
her. And I was like, I don't think that would happen that fast.
Yeah.
I think it's been maybe a day.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was a little sus.
Yeah. But, anyway, so that was the whole episode, basically, more or less. And we didn't really get anywhere that we know of right now. With the information that we have, the things that happened in this episode, nothing crazy. Nothing crazy in this episode. Nothing amazing to watch. I could go below a 6. I don't think I will.
Yeah.
For my final rating. I think because of the good things that I talked about, and the fact that even though the story progression wasn't necessarily there for me, I was still entertained, and I was on the edge of my seat, like I said, at the end and stuff. So it was still a good episode, above average, but just not exciting.
Yeah, I found it very and I think having it out of 5 is pretty much where it is. Like, I don't think anything you would have said would have brought it down. Like, maybe you could have brought it up with that first scene that I totally forgot about. Like, that was good,
it was
but it didn't help anything. So I definitely think that a 5 is pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. All right. There you have it. That's our final verdict.
Final verdict. Okay episode.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. And we'll see you in the next one.